आज का जो टॉपिक हम करेंगे वो होगा हमारा SQL injection according to the OWASP top 10. But सबसे पहले let's look what is OWASP top 10. So over here we can see top 10 critical vulnerabilities according to the web application and the methodology जो use होती है यहाँ पे OWASP. So it's an organization which is basically used to penetrate or secure the web application and the application on the web server side. And OWASP top 10 contains top 10 critical vulnerabilities and it changes according to every 3 to 4 years. And you can see this is updated 2018 one. So it's gonna change around 2021 or 22. It's all up to that. For example, अगर आप सबसे नीचे जाओ तो आप सबसे पहले जो देखेंगे यहाँ पे कंपेयर कर सकते हैं 2013 को और 2017 में जो मोड्स और चेंजेस हुए थे आपके, जिसमें अगर आप यहाँ पे देखो सबसे पहले आपका इंजेक्शन होगा आपका A1 इंजेक्शन, A2 broken authentication and session management, A3 is your sensitive data exposure, A4 is your XML external entities which is your XSE, and A5 is your broken access control, A6 is your security misconfiguration, 7 process scripting, and you can see some these are the old ones. अगर आप चेक करो OWASP top 10 को कंपेयर टू 2003 से तो वहाँ पे और भी बहुत सारे चेंजेस मिलेंगे आपको. And through this also. So today we're gonna start with the OWASP top 10. We're gonna complete 2 sessions today, and let's see what is injection first of all. So injection is the most top critical vulnerabilities of the OWASP top 10, and they according same as the OWASP top 10. There is also one of the organization which is called your SANS 25. SANS 25, which also has some vulnerabilities according to the OWASP top 10, but it has also the CVWE, common web exploitation part, and the code number 1197920. You can see improper restriction of operation with a bound of memory buffer overflow, improper neutralization cross-site scripting, improper input validation, improper exposure out of the boundary, SQL injection. You can see it has 89 code, and use after free, which has for integer overflow and background, cross-site forgery, which is a CSRF, with improper limitations of Python. They have given all the vulnerabilities over here. So most of the people or pen tester, they simply use OWASP top 10 or the SANS 25 according to that. So हम जो आज use करेंगे, so we're gonna use OWASP top 10. So we're gonna read about what is injection first of all. So you can see injection attack occurs when the user is able to input untrusted data and tricking the application system to execute initiate commands. Injection can be your SQL queries, your PHP queries, your LDAP queries, and OS commands. These are the 4 types of variants that we can use it for injection part. And over here, if a user is able to insert any of the queries of SQL queries or PHP queries in a single parameter value, so there could be a chance of vulnerabilities. What to inject? You can see OS commands, codes, and URL manipulations, and queries also. Where to inject? The most important part. Wherever a user input is required or used can be modified data. It can be a text box, a username and password field, a fieldback field, a comment field, or a URL. Why to inject? To check if the application is vulnerable or not. So over here they have given all the things one by one. So today we're going to start with the module called injection, but in injection we're going to start the module called SQL injection. So SQL stands for structured query language. Injection. So it's all about the methodology which we can use for web services and application and the database and information part. And it requires a deep knowledge about the application process and its components such as your SQL. Injection is basically insertions of malicious codes and script by exploiting the vulnerabilities to launch the attack powered by the backend components, because we have the front end application part, but in the back end there will be a multiple queries chance. So over here, if you simply go down, so you can see SQL injection is all about the website and web application. You can say animation part or the exploiting part. It's all about the codes and the scripts existing in the queries. And over here, the most important part, what we can do from SQL injection. SQL injection, you can see SQL injection is a powerful and dangerous attack. It identifies the flow and vulnerabilities in the website and the application. The fundamental concept of the SQL injection is to inject commands to reveal sensitive information from the database. And if you look, what can be the things we can do? The scope of SQL injection, they have given bypassing the authentication, revealing sensitive information, compromise data integrity, erasing the database, and you can say remote code execution part. So if you look over here, how SQL query works. So they have given select star from. Injection of a query will execute on the server replied by the response. For example, the following queries. This command will reveal all information order stored in the database. Order table. If the organization maintains record of the order in the database, all the information keep the database table in the extracted by the commands. So order by clause, you can say the select start from. We especially use this command for fetching the data from the server side, or we can see the MySQL side also. If we talk about our own database, for example, my own server, let's try service MySQL start. So MySQL -u equals root -p password your. So we are on the server side in my local server. So what are we gonna do? Show databases. So we have information schema, we have MySQL, we have performance schema. So information schema is basically used for architecture of the MySQL server. So what we can use? We can use MySQL, use MySQL, show tables, I guess, because we are on the database. So I can see all the tables over here. I can see common state, common privileges, DB, events, functionality. These are all the functions. The users also. So what the select statement over here, the select star from user. Okay, sorry, it's a star over here from user. So we are simply fetching the data from the user table. Or what I can do, I can simply go to the function directory. Empty sets. Okay, there was nothing. So the most important part is to understand how the MySQL table works, or you can create your own database over here. And this was a simple demonstration of your own server on a Kali Linux. And you can see in the back end, if I do netstat antup, I can see in the backend server, my MySQL server is running. Cool. So the main objective is to understand how the SQL injection works in the web application part. So in this scenario, we're going to talk about how does it works. Select star from order by, you can see a user which is using his server with the web server. Order ID, customer name, shipment date. You can see this, they have given a proper flow. So they have given SQL delete queries. The delete statement is used to delete the existing record in the table name and consider the table customer. But the most important part, let me show you. When you are doing an SQL injection in a website, all you have to find is the parameter value. So over here, we're gonna use SQL injection Google Docs. So I guess You are familiar with the Google Doc, Gaurav? Google Docking to identify or search the parameter in a proper manner. Gaurav, which one have to?
हेलो
Anji, Anji.
हाँ जी बोलिए
So you are already familiar with the SQL injection, I guess.
हाँ हाँ एसक्यूएल में आता है मेरे को अच्छे से किया हुआ है
So we can jump to the attacking point this then. So over here we're gonna use some Google Docs to identify the SQL injection part. So these are some URL parameter values. You can see view items dot domain dot php is equal id is equal to. So if I talk about id is equal to it could be a column name from the database. Cat is also a column name. So let me show you one example. SQL injection part identification. So over here I'm going to use domain name file type dot programming language question mark parameter is equal to value. So over here I have given a simple strategy that you could use to identify the SQL injection file. For example, you can compare this one. This over here is this one, the PHP is your file type and programming language. And the ID is your parameter with the value. It could be anything. The ID parameters could be anything. But the most important part, this URL section could be any of the websites. तो सबसे ज्यादा अगर मैं कॉमन चीज की बात करूं, सबसे ज्यादा कॉमन क्या मिलेगा आपको? login.php क्वेश्चन मार्क id is equal to 1. तो ये जो पैरामीटर की वैल्यू यहाँ पे दिख रहा है, ये आपकी लॉगिन फॉर्म का है. So you need to understand the basic of the web application part over there. So there could be lot of things. अगर आप यहाँ पे देखो, यहाँ पे बहुत सारे Google Docs दे रखे हैं. Productivity list, online sales, garden, gig, index.php is the most common thing. Let's use some Google Docs over here. So I'm going to use in URL. We're going to identify the first thing, which is your parameter value. So over here, let's use ID 0 to 1. So over here, you can see I use the in URL tag, which is index.php with the ID is equal to 1. तो अगर आप यहाँ पे बात करो, ये सबसे ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट चीज है कि अगर एक कोई भी पैरामीटर की वैल्यू आपको एक्सपोज हो रही है, उसके थ्रू आप अटैक करने की कोशिश करोगे. जैसे कि मैं अगर यहाँ पे 3-4 वेबसाइट ओपन कर दूं, so you can see csr.org, which is showing id is equal to 1. id is equal to 1. Are they secure? I don't think so. So सबसे पहले तो आपको क्या करना है, क्रॉल करना है. जैसे कि मैं अगर बात करूँ, ये जो वेबसाइट है, अगर मुझे इस वेबसाइट में SQL इंजेक्शन ढूंढना है, तो सबसे पहले तो मैं इसको क्रॉल करूंगा, या मैं सीधा गूगल डॉक्स यूज कर सकता हूँ. क्रॉल करने के लिए मैं यहाँ पे वर्कशीट यूज कर सकता हूँ, या मैं यहाँ पे मैं यूज करने वाला हूँ, वो है आपका SQL मैप. The first thing is to identify the parameter value, which will be something is equal to something, just like this one. So मैं यहाँ पे SQL जो मैप है, वो आपका एक ऑटोमेशन टूल है, जो आप इसको बग्स आइडेंटिफाई करने के लिए यूज कर सकते हो, या उसे क्रॉल करने के लिए, वेबसाइट को क्रॉल करने के लिए, यानी कि आइडेंटिफाई करने के लिए पैरामीटर वैल्यूज को. तो जिसमें आप देखो यहाँ पे टारगेट में आप -u डाल सकते हो, जो कि स्पेसिफाई करेगा आपका URL सेक्शन. -g आपका गूगल डॉक्स के लिए, रिक्वेस्ट के लिए आप अपने चेंजेस कर सकते हो, डेटा टाइप को चेंज कर सकते हो, जैसे आपकी आईडी इज इक्वल टू 1। आप कुकीज पैरामीटर को भी यूज कर सकते हो अटैक करने के लिए, या आप अपने रैंडम एजेंट, आप अपना यूजर एजेंट एड्रेस डाल सकते हो। सो अगर आप यहाँ पे इंजेक्शन में देखो, इंजेक्शन में आप यहाँ पे पैरामीटर, टेस्ट पैरामीटर वैल्यू, इफ यू नो द पैरामीटर, और यू कैन स्पेसिफाई द डेटाबेस। और यहाँ पे जो डिटेक्शन के लिए, यानी कि आपके एडवांस स्कैनिंग के लिए, आप यहाँ पे अपने लेवल, जो कि आपका डिफॉल्टली 1 होता है, 1 से लेकर 5 होता है, ये आपके फास्ट एग्जीक्यूशन के लिए होता है, और रिस्क, इम्पैक्ट। तो अगर आप ये लेवल और रिस्क को बढ़ाते हो, तो ये ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा लॉग्स क्रिएट करेगा बैकएंड सर्वर में, जिससे कोई भी अलर्ट हो सकता है। और अगर आप यहाँ पे देखो टेक्निक्स में, यहाँ पे आप टेक्निक यूज कर सकते हो, जिसमें आपका एसक्यूएल इंजेक्शन टेक्निक, आप अपने खुद के कमांड दे सकते हो। बट सबसे ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है आपका एनुमरेशन। क्यों? एनुमरेशन टू एक्सट्रैक्ट। तो अगर आप यहाँ पे देखो आइफन आइफन टेबल्स, आइफन आइफन पासवर्ड्स, retrieve everything, retrieve banners, current user, current database, password username hashes, enumerate table names, column names, schema, information schema जो यूज होता है हमारा, hyphen dump to extract। और जो सबसे ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है, अगर आपको कोई स्पेसिफिक डेटाबेस मिलता है तो आपको उसे रिप्रेजेंट करोगे कैपिटल डी से, टेबल को मिलता है तो कैपिटल टी, और कॉलम मिलता है तो कैपिटल सी। जिसमें अगर आप आइफन आइफन डेटाबेस यूज करते हो तो आपको आइफन आइफन टेबल्स यूज करना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि आपको टेबल्स डेटाबेस से एक्सट्रैक्ट करने हैं। तो और यहाँ पे ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम एक्सेस भी ले सकते हैं अगर वो उसमें वल्नरेबल हुई तो। एसक्यूएल इंजेक्शन से हम शेल भी कमांड एग्जीक्यूट कर सकते हैं, रिमोट कर एग्जीक्यूशन का। तो यहाँ पे जो मैं करूंगा, सबसे पहले मैं एसक्यूएल मैप -u, यानी कि URL। तो यहाँ पे मैं ये वाली वेबसाइट ले रहा हूँ, टेस्ट वेबसाइट, और मैं यहाँ पे वर्ड यूज करूंगा क्रॉल। क्रॉल जो यहाँ पे यूज हो रहा है आपके आइडेंटिफाई करने के लिए यूज हो रहा है आपके पैरामीटर वैल्यूज को। तो मैं यहाँ पे क्रॉल की जो वैल्यू दूंगा वो 1 दूंगा डिफॉल्ट। स्कैन द एंटायर वेबसाइट एंड आइडेंटिफाई द पैरामीटर विद द वैल्यू। So over here it's going to ask me the existing site map which contains all the directories and subdirectories. So we don't have that one, so no. Okay, scroll को बढ़ा देते थोड़ा सा। Please enter the number of threads. Okay, 5 ले लो। See this one. Number of threads has been directed, link visited, 12 links, 8 links are visited, and he got a 302 request, which is your login.php. Do you want to follow this one? Yes, why not? Do you want to store the crawling result on your temporary files? I will say no. Look, first parameter value, which is artist, is equal to 1. SQL testing vulnerable.com artist.php, artist is equal to 1. So do you want to test this URL? I will say yes, why not? So अगर आप यहाँ पे देखो testing URLs, PHP artist is equal to 1, and you can see it's the backend database is MySQL, and it's look like backend database. You can see over here also, so we can see yes, why not? Go. For remaining tests, do you want to include all the tests for MySQL extending provides level 1 and level 2? Yes, for advanced basic scan. See this one, we're gonna try all the error based, where having order by, group by, clause. In SQL injection, there are 2 types of injection, you can say, error based injection and blind SQL injection. You can see the get parameter artist is vulnerable. Do you want to keep the testing for other? I said no. And look, what are the things he used? He used the first Boolean type. Boolean SQL injection is a condition where our attacker simply asks the question to the server side in a true and false statement. For example, you can see they have given artist is equal to 1 and they are using an AND function, and they have given a true value, which is your 4084 is equal to 4084. A true statement. And they are using time-based SQL injection also. Time-based SQL injection is also used for identifying the bugs on the server side. Most of the website, if you are going to identify the SQL injection in a real life website, so you have to use the blind SQL injection part. Where you in blind SQL injection, there are two types: Boolean, which is a type of where an attacker has a true and false statement, and in time-based, an attacker simply use some time application to identify the loopholes. 5 seconds to sleep over there. And they are using union query. Union query is also used in the SQL injection part to join two multiple queries in a single statement. So, do you want to explore the SQL injection? I will say yes. Look, they have find the artist 02 and artist 03. So, SQL injection vulnerability already has detected. Yes. So, they have find the some parameter values over here also, like this one. Let's try to open any of them. So the most important part, if I talk about the artist over here, let's copy the parameter value. The artist is a query from the database. So the most important part is the capsulation part. The capsulation means, is it capsulated with a single quote or a double quote or a single quote bracket? Sorry, single quote bracket or a double quote bracket. Or there is no encapsulation string they are using. So the first thing, you need to identify which encapsulation strings they have used for covering the data from a string. I think this is an integer value, but sometimes they use some of the queries over here. So for identifying the query type, we're gonna use the exception handling part. Exception handling is known as error handling. To check the parameter value query. So in this scenario, what I'm going to use any of the queries over here, list like a single quote or a double quote or a backslash to check the error handling part. So these common quotes will execute over there and simply find. अगर सोचो कि ये अगर 3 single quote bracket में है, अगर मैं यहाँ पे एक और quote लगा दूँ, तो वहाँ से एक error आनी चाहिए SQL की. So we're gonna use single quote or double quote. For example, let's see, I'm gonna use a single quote, and we can see that there's a MySQL statement, MySQL fetch array, accept parameter. So it's basically fetching the data from server side, and we can see they have given a path of the file, which is your hj var www artist.php. If you try to use the double quote, nope, the same error. That's great. And the backslash. These three are basically used to check the exception handling on the server side. For example, but this is not the error which I was looking for. We're gonna look for different error, just like this one. So over here we have also the category is equal to 1 part. So over here, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use a backslash. The error should be like this. You have an error in your SQL syntax. Check that manage corresponding to your MySQL server version for the right syntax to near at string. And one more thing you can see over there, they are using single quote parameter. This is the error that we are looking for in the first stage. If an attacker simply gain an error from server side, he can use other queries. For example, let's copy this one, and I'm gonna make a normal one. So this was a front end, but what will be the back end query? select star from, it could be any other table name, it could be your, it could be anything, let's take anything, where table is equal to cat, something like this, Gaurav.
Where cat equal to 1.
Yeah,
Where cat equal to 1.
yeah, cat is equal to 1. So over here, how an attacker, simply gain information. Sometimes he simply makes some queries over there in the backend. He simply make a hookup point. For example, think about a login form. Let's take a login form example. We have a username and a password. So username would be anything. Let's say Craw. Password, let's say sec. So we have select star from username is equal to, this is a, let's see, Craw, password is equal to sec from database. But over here, the most important part, how an attacker make a hookup point where he can simply place his strings or a queries over there. So for example, first of all, balance the query with a single quote, and minus minus plus is basically used for commenting out. So in the programming language, we use hash, I guess, for comment out. But over here, the data which is transferring from the URL section, we're gonna use minus minus plus to balance the query. And this space over here is basically used for your proper sequence or a hookup point. This space is basically known as hookup point. Hookup point where attacker place a query. For example, see over here. I'm going to use minus minus place, and I'm going to remove this one. See, over here I know that the category 1 is vulnerable. Over here is a MySQL error over there. So what I'm going to use, I'm going to use some you can say some statement, SQL statements. For example, I'm going to use W3 School SQL Injection. So you can simply go for SQL W3 School. You will learn lots of things. Okay, W3 resource, it's a resource, and I never know this. There is also a website. So over here you can see SQL injection is a code injection technique that might be destroy your database. SQL injection, one of the most common web hacking techniques. SQL injection is a placement of malicious code in the SQL statement via the web page input. So over here you can see they have given lots of queries over here that we can learn. But the most important part, when you find an SQL injection based on 1 and 1, which is always true. This is a true statement you can use for bypassing. And this queries is basically used to bypass the authentication part. So SQL above is just valid will return all the rows and the user tables, since all is equal to 1 is a true statement. So over here you can simply say user ID, name, password from where ID is equal to 105, and it's not gonna ask you the password. So it's gonna run the query. A true statement should be there. Over here we can see is equal to is always true. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna use some queries over here. For example, we're gonna use order by query first of all. The order by keyword is used to sort the result, send in ascending and descending order. The order by keyword stores the recent record in order form. You can see it's a proper way, you can say. So if we want to use the order by function, we have to specify all the number of columns one by one to identify. If you are looking for the number 3, you can't look for the number 3. You have to specify 1, 2 also. So over here, we're going to use order by function over here. Let's use order by function. So order by function, and I think in the back end, there will be number of columns. We're going to identify the number of columns over there. So I'm going to use 1, 2, 3, we have to wait for the error. So there are number of columns are 9. Let's use 10, 11. Again, there are number of columns are 11 over there. So let's use 12. So over here we have error from the server side, and it's showing us unknown column 12 in order clause. So it means the number of columns are 11 in a proper way. So if you remove 4 or 3, you will see it's giving a proper value. So if you simply change all the values over here, you will see same thing. But if you simply write 12, you will see the order clause is this. So you have to give a proper function over here. So through the order by function, we can identify the number of parameter values. We can say the column values on the server side. But over here, the most common thing, we have to use the union select statement. We're going to use the union statement. The union operator is used to combine the result sets of 2 and more select statements. Each select statement with union must have the same number of columns, and the columns must have the same similar data type. The column in select statement must be in the order. You can see if we are using a union statement, we have to specify the column names from the table 1 and the table 2 also. So it will execute both of the data column tables from customers and the suppliers. The following SQL statement returns the cities. You can see proper. So what we're gonna do? We're gonna use union all statement. Why? Because through union, we're gonna identify the loophole also. So union all select. So the union select has been executed, but over here it's gonna execute the cat is equal to 1 also plus the other values, and minus plus is over here is basically used to comment out the right answer query. So it will execute the query from here. So let's see, there's nothing changes. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna negative the first one. Why we are negative the first one? Because we want to execute the second one. And over here from the backend side server, I can see there are some reflected words like 11, 7, 2, and 9. These are the number of columns which are unsanitized. Unsanitized, I will say unsanitized because they are not properly protected. 11, 7, 2, and 9. These are the reflected words from the server side, and through an attacker simply can insert some malicious codes over here. Some malicious SQL codes.
Can you please repeat it again? I can't understand this. Minus
From
one.
the union all select statement. These are the column names. These are the number of columns on the server side. The union select statement is also used for identifying the vulnerable column names on the server side. So there are around 4 column names which are vulnerable. 11, 7, 2, and 9, which is not proper sanitized from the developer side. Because if any of the attackers simply extract the column names, but there should be a proper validation. The first thing, the order by function should be work over there. And the union select statement is basically all to identify the vulnerable column names. And these are the vulnerable column names, 11, 7, 2, and 9. An attacker simply insert malicious codes. Look, if I'm writing in 1, version, no reflection. But if I write into version, which is infected, you will see a word over there. So यहाँ पे आपके vulnerable parameters की बात हो रही है, और यहाँ पे जो vulnerable parameters है आपके 11, 7 and 2 and 9 है, जिससे अटैकर कोई भी malicious कोड को इंसर्ट कर सकता है.
Okay.
जैसे कि मैं अगर यहाँ पे डेटाबेस लिख दूं, the database name is acquired. So these are the normal statements of SQLs. See this one. In this slide, they have given the basic concept. They have given in-band SQLi and outbound SQLi. In in-band, they are error-based or union-based. Error-based injection is one of the in-band SQL injection techniques. It's an error messages from the database server to reveal information about structure of the database. So we are doing error-based SQL injection over here. Oh, sorry. We are getting the errors from the server side. You can see over here, error-based explanation is very effective for the attacker to enumerate an entire database. Error-based are useful during the development phase to troubleshoot issues. These messages should be visible when the application website is live. Error-based explanation can be performed by the following techniques. You can system stored procedure, and line component, illegal, logical, incorrect, and autology. So right now we are doing error-based explanation, getting the errors from the server side to reveal the sensitive informations. And if you see over here, union injection is all about to combine the queries in a proper way. Union-based SQL injection is another in-band SQL injection technique that is involve the union operator to combine more and more select statement. In-band or blind, you can see there is an explanation. Blind explanation is also there. In federal SQL injection, no database is transferred from a web application. An attacker is able to see the result. The attacker hence result in blind SQL injection, and it can observe the behavior of the server, which is a true and false conditions. सबसे ज्यादा आपके जो यूज होते हैं आपके एरर बेस्ड एक्सप्लेनेशन यूज होती है, और आपका ये ब्लाइंड एक्सप्लेनेशन, और ब्लाइंड के थ्रू ही आप एरर को फाइंड करते हो. मोस्टली आपको ब्लाइंड मिलेंगे. See this one, they have given lots of other things also. Boolean exploitation techniques, outbound injection part, and in the end you will see they are using some automation tools. They are using IBM security app standard to identify the loopholes, and I'm going to show you in the manual way. Is it okay, Gaurav?
Yeah.
So over here we can see that we find the database query. So I'm going to copy the URL just like this one. So we identify the database which is your acquired. But think about the database which has some tables also. In tables they might have columns, and in the column there would be data that we are looking for. So the most important part, you have to check all the things one by one. For example, enumeration is the key of success. And over here, if you find the database, you need to find the table names. And over here, we need information underscore schema also, which stores the architecture of each and every table's names and database. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna use table underscore name to identify the table name in the parameter 2. From where? From information underscore schema dot tables architecture, where table underscore schema is equal to the database name. That was acquired. Check. So what I use on the vulnerable parameter, I use table underscore name over there. And I'm going to retrieve the data from the information underscore schema where the architecture is present, and where the table underscore schema is equal to acquired, the database name. So when I execute this command, I can see all the table names over there, which is artist, cards, categories, features, guestbook, pictures, products, and users over there. So we can see on the table names there are some columns, which is a user column. We're gonna specify the table name user, and we're gonna enumerate some column names. For that case, if you are using the table name users, you have to specify the table name over here and replace this one with column names. If you are extracting the column names from the database, and from information schema dot columns will be changed. Instead of tables, we're gonna write columns over here, where table underscore name. Now over here we're gonna write the name over here. The name will be users. So when you find that what I did, I simply use a column name to extract from the information of columns architecture, where table name, now the table name will be there, is users table name. So over here we can see all the column names, which is your uname, password, CC, address, emails, names, phone number, categories. You can see all the things there over here one by one. So as an attacker, what I can do, I can simply look for the data like uname and password. So what would be the query? For example, see over here. In the column name, I'm going to use a command called group concatenate, and I'm going to paste the uname and the pass. And I'm going to execute this query direct from the user. Executing the query from the database, which is your user tables. And in the group concat, I'm using the uname and the password from the column names. See, all the things is necessary over here. You need to find the loopholes. What is happening? Okay, so union all select group underscore concatenate uname comma passwords from users. Okay, sorry. Again, we have an error. No, it's okay. From users, union comma pass group underscore Cat. Group concat.
Yeah,
Uh,
please concat over.
concat होगा ना?
Concat over. CONCAT.
Hmm. Yes. Group concat. So we can see over here the username and the password was over here. Test over there. Let's make a space between them. Yes, we can see. So over here they are using some URL function also. So this is the way that we can use it, the manual pen testing. But this is not the manual pen testing that you can say. There's a lot of things that we know. If there is a news, if there some of the students are new over there, you can go to the security trials for SQL injection. Security idiot. Sorry, it was idiot, not trials. It was security idiots. Yes. So they have given the lots of challenges that we can do over here. They have given the basics of SQL injections, union-based, error-based, SQL event-to injection, client SQL injection, bypass logging using dumping. All the things are given away one by one. So why this is not opening? Okay, cool. So okay, so this website is not running over here. Okay, so note down the website. This was Security Idiots. You can get all the things you want. You can get the videos, the theme also, and the lots of things. I guess over here it's not working. So let's me change my browser. So Security Idiots SQL. Yes, I guess the website is down a little down over. Okay, so I think the website is down. You can simply check it later on. So this was a manual approach that you can use for, but we have to understand how the thing is work. So there are various ways that we can do. So this was also one of the technique, but you can use SQL map over here also. And in SQL map, you can see the parameter was vulnerable. So I can take this parameter if you are using the automation tool. So over here, I'm going to use SQL map -u. Sorry. So we have to specify the parameter value also over there. So the cat is equal to 1. So first of all, we know that this parameter was vulnerable. So I'm going to use -dbs to enumerate the database servers. So over here they're saying the database section. So I will say yes. Do you want to skip this test payload, specify the DMZ6? Do you want to include all the tests for MySQL extending provide disk level and disk 2? I'll say yes. It's going to check all the possibilities of the Sql injections. Get parameter cat is vulnerable. Do you want to test in the further one? I say no. See the database. So over here we find the database name that was acquired and the information schema. So we're gonna use the database like acquired over here. So as I mentioned you, if you want to use the specific data name, you have to specify the capital D and the name of that one. Acquired. And in the specific database, we have to specify the table tables to enumerate tables. So we're gonna use tables to enumerate. And over here, you can see there are artists, cards, categories, feature, guest book, pictures, products, and users over there. So if I'm using the table, any of the specific table, I have to use specify the capital T as per the rules, and I'm going to use users over there, and I'm going to use columns to enumerate. So let's try this one. So over here, I can see the database, which was like your address, card, CC, emails, name, pass, phone number. These are the things which we can use. So over here, I'm going to use the capital C again, and I'm going to use the uname and the pass. So I'm going to use uname, comma, pass, and I'm going to use -dump, as we have mentioned that. The dump command is basically used to extract the database's services on the backend server. So let's use dump. So over here, you can see the username is test and the password is test over here. That could be used in a scenario based. This scenarios, this is the methodology which can be used in the manual pen testing part. But over here, there are various techniques that can be used in further technical. For example, you will see how an attacker simply use these things. There are various ways, there are various techniques that we can use for further exploitation part. But the most important part is to understand how the web application and the web security works. SQL map and the technology that we used, and the simple methodologies to understand.